All right, let's dive in. Today we're exploring tinnitus treatments. We've got two articles to unpack, one from the brighter side of news, and a research piece from the Journal of Personalized Medicine.
Yeah, should be interesting.
Definitely. Especially for those dealing with that phantom ringing or buzzing, which, by the way, is a lot of people.
It is like 750 million globally, almost 10% of the planet.
Wow, that's a huge number. And it's not a disease itself, right?
They're more of a symptom.
With tons of potential causes, which I guess makes treatment tough.
Exactly.
So the brighter side of news is highlighting low-level laser therapy, LLLT for short. They're saying it's showing real promise, especially when combined with something called photobiomodulation.
Right, using light to, well, kind of kickstart the body's healing processes.
And the article suggests this isn't brand new, but what's exciting is the research is leading to more standardized protocols.
That's key. Moving away from just trial and error towards something more consistent and reliable.
Like I'm picturing baking a cake. If the recipe's vague, you never know what you'll get.
Perfect analogy. You want that proven method so everyone benefits.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. This research didn't just look at LLLT in isolation.
Yeah.
They compared it to 10 other treatment methods.
10. Wow.
Yep. Laser acupuncture, different medications like flunarizine dihydrochloride, even Ginkgo biloba, that herbal supplement.
Well,
Oh, and transmedal stimulation too. That's the one where they apply like a gentle electrical current through the ear canal.
interesting. So, a really broad scope speaks to how seriously they're taking finding solutions.
Absolutely. And to understand their findings, we got to look at how they measured improvement. In the Journal of Personalized Medicine article, they talk about using something called the Tinnitus Handicap Inventory, or THI.
Right, and they focus on the functional subscale, meaning it's not just about reducing the sound itself, but how tinnitus affects your daily life.
Like sleep, concentration, your overall mood, that kind of thing.
Exactly. They wanted to see how these treatments impacted people's quality of life.
Makes sense. And one of their findings was that extending the laser treatment time from 6 to 15 minutes made a big difference, especially with that transmedal LLLT.
They were using 100 milliwatts of power at a specific wavelength of 660 nanometers. For anyone wanting to dig deeper, those details are in the article.
Good to know. But then there's this other twist that I found surprising.
Oh, what's that?
Combining LLLT with some other therapies like vacuum therapy, ultrasound, or certain drugs actually had a negative effect, like they worked against each other.
Huh. That is counterintuitive. You'd think more would be better, but in medicine, that's not always the case.
So why would that be?
A couple of possibilities. Maybe those other therapies interfere with how LLLT works at a biological level, or it could be simply too much stimulation for the system to handle.
Okay, so lots to think about. For our listeners, anything here surprise you? Are you rethinking your approach to tinnitus treatments at all? And one last thing before we move on, I want to highlight that this study focused specifically on idiopathic and refractory tinnitus.
Right. Idiopathic meaning they don't know the cause, and refractory meaning other treatments haven't worked. So this research offers some real hope for those who felt like they'd hit a wall. And that's really where this idea of personalized medicine comes in, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Like what works for one person might not for another, and finding the right approach for each individual case.
Yeah, totally. So moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. And, we talked about those microcirculation issues in the inner ear.
Right, the tiny blood flow problems.
Yeah, like little plumbing issues affecting how blood gets to certain areas.
Uh-huh, I like that analogy, like a kink in the hose.
Perfect. So if that is part of the problem in some cases, it makes you wonder, could lifestyle factors like diet or exercise, even stress management, play a bigger role than we think?
Ooh, interesting. So it's not just about medical treatments, but maybe your overall health.
It's all connected, right?
Makes you think.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up this part,
Yeah.
anything you want to leave our listeners with to ponder?
Well, I think it's worth considering, what if we're just scratching the surface with tinnitus?
Like there's so much more to discover.
Exactly. What if there are whole new treatment avenues out there we haven't even thought of yet?
Exciting,
Yeah.
but also a little daunting, right?
Haha. Yeah, it really highlights how much we still have to learn.
Well, on that note, let's take a quick break and come back for the final part of our deep dive. All right, we're back for the last part of our deep dive. Lots to unpack still.
Definitely. We were just talking about those antagonistic effects, right, when you combine some therapies with LLLT.
Yeah, the research had a possible explanation for that.
Oh, yeah.
They think it might mess with the how neurons in the brain are working together.
Interesting.
Like instead of everything being in sync, it throws things off.
Ah, I see. So it's not just about what's happening in the ear itself, but how the brain processes those signals.
Exactly. Like disrupting the brain's orchestra almost, creating more noise instead of less.
Great way to put it. It really shows how complex tinnitus is. It's not just the inner ear, it's the whole nervous system.
So to our listeners out there, any final thoughts? Anything that really stood out to you during this deep dive?
Yeah. What new questions are you asking yourselves now about tinnitus?
And remember, keep learning, keep asking those questions. This is just the start of the conversation.
Absolutely. And if you are struggling with tinnitus, don't lose hope. There are promising treatments out there.
Right, and with more research, even better solutions might be on the horizon.
Definitely. And don't forget those links to the articles we talked about. They're in the show notes.
Perfect place to continue your own research.
Well,
Folks, that wraps up our deep dive into tinnitus treatments.
we hope you found it helpful and maybe even got you thinking in new ways about this condition.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of science.